I love this segment, Robert. King on screen,
Nice.
which is explain this, Robert, so I don't
Yeah, so I thought,
ruin it.
we've in the past few years now we've had different segments and we did what top boxes per year and so forth and we talk about Stephen King quite a bit through you may might not have heard us ever talk about The Stand or anything like that.
Yeah,
What's
it's not.
that?
But
What is that?
which just had their anniversary 31st anniversary last week. So
MOON
yeah.
spells anniversary.
And King is such a predator. So I thought, you know what? There's been so many, I mean, I think over 100 different adaptations. So I'm like, let's do a King on screen each or almost, each segment. And of course, if we want to go in order, I'm not sure if we want to do that, but obviously Carrie was the
Yeah,
first, not only King, official Stephen King novel, but the first one to hit the big screen in 1976.
which is still great.
Yeah,
Great idea with this, Robert. That movie,
I
I'll
like
just
this.
say, Carrie is still that image and the blood. It's
Oh,
still
forget it.
creepy 50 years
Yeah.
later. I mean, it's just it's and her mother is like still scares me. That's still one of the most that and Zelda from Pet Cemetery
Oh yeah.
are like the
Yeah.
two
Good
disturbing
call.
things because I'm like,
Yeah.
why is her mom so evil and she doesn't know? And poor Carrie and those fucking kids. And then you're like,
Yeah.
that's a great. I mean, I'm Brian De Palma. That's a
100%. So,
bold
That holds
movie.
up. Yeah,
Yeah.
that definitely holds up.
so a lot of this information I kind of knew, but I did go down the rabbit hole because I was just like, obviously, this was Stephen King's first kind of official novel, and he was advanced. First, it was going to be 1,500, but they went up to $2,500 for Carrie. So, was his kind of first paycheck, and he was excited about that. And then I know they sold the paperback rights or they paperback rights were bought for $400,000 and he got half of that. So $200,000 in
Jeez.
1974-ish. I mean, there's just crazy to think. And I think
Yeah.
it's pretty well known that he had started writing this story. He wrote like 2 to 3 pages and he didn't like where it was going, so he threw it in the trash and then was going down to watch TV or something. And his wife, Tabitha, asked what happened, and she's like, he just said the story was going nowhere. And so she said she literally dug it out of the trash, cleaned off all the ashes and stuff like that, and told him to keep going. And so we really have to thank
Wow.
Tabitha King
I didn't know
for,
that.
yeah, for not only for Carrie, but obviously that propelled him into,
I had no idea that
yeah, yeah.
No, me neither.
So,
he
but otherwise,
wouldn't have had Carrie if he
yeah.
just
And he talks about the time
Wow.
that he couldn't even barely afford typing paper. So everything would be single spaced with almost no margins because he said he couldn't afford to waste paper on first drafts.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, but
that's crazy. I had
That's
no
amazing.
idea.
yeah.
Yeah, same.
So
Robert knows.
what I didn't
Wow.
know, and recently found out that the original ending to Carrie, because it did go through some, he saw editors obviously and so forth, but apparently the original ending, Carrie kind of went even more crazier, and then somehow grew horns, and she also brought a plane down uh,
Really?
at the end as
Wow.
well. Yeah, which
Damn.
I could see them
Yeah.
doing now. It probably
Yeah,
would not
right.
kind of make much sense. So, and I dug out because this was my first Stephen King book that I ever bought was
Nice.
Carrie, the
Nice.
paperback. So,
Yeah.
and I
Nice.
don't, have you guys read the book or?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so
Yeah.
it's I felt
Way
like it was
back
kind of
when, like I
small.
was a
Yeah.
teenager.
So, and I think they
Yeah.
call it's half of it is what do they call it? Is it epistolary or something where it's news articles and
Yeah.
versus part of it's news articles and part of it's kind of a typical kind of novel. But I remember I think I was young enough. I was like, is this real? Like because it would say
Yeah.
cited from the Castle Rock News. I was like, wait a second, is
Yeah.
this?
I
Yep.
like when they do that
Yep.
and it
Yeah.
works. They do that in this book called The Troop, where it's like clipped and this Max Brooks book they just came out with. It's very like it's not real, but when you're younger, you're like, wait a second, did this what
Yeah.
happened? And it's a lot darker the book than I mean they have to cut
Yeah.
stuff down for screen
Yeah.
time, but
Yeah.
yeah, the good adaptation for
Yeah.
sure.
So, and speaking
Yeah.
of Star Wars, so you may know that the casting calls and auditions were done simultaneously with George Lucas. George was casting Star Wars, while De Palma was casting Carrie. So they used the same groups, and it was the same casting calls. So you were reading for both at the time for Carrie and Star Wars, and so
No kidding.
we could have very well had William Katt
Interesting.
as Luke Skywalker. So
I'm telling you, Robert, I could sit down for hours and just pick your brain apart about some of this stuff. I had no idea that's
Yeah,
what did
it's
like scenes like
it's like a
that.
lesson. It's like what's going.
Seriously.
It is cool.
Yeah,
I had no idea. Good
yeah.
dive.
I know.
But film was released in 1976.
Hmm.
There was a deleted scene that I had it on laser. The Criterion Collection had that on Laserdisc, so it was expensive at the time, and they never released the film. Or they have no footage of the scene they deleted, but in the opening of the book, and then kind of later in the kind of other remakes, when Carrie's a little girl, she brings these stones ash down onto their house. And because the mother was upset,
Oh,
so there's no footage, but there is Sissy, because more or less she plays like probably a 8-year-old, but it's Sissy Spacek with a
yeah,
huge, almost Incredible Shrinking Woman type, like a huge fence, playing
yeah,
herself as a little girl. So it probably did not work
No.
yeah,
because of
yeah,
that. But if you can
yeah.
still see pictures of Sissy Spacek dressed up as a little girl next to a huge fence, pretending to be, yeah. So,
Oh, no way.
but yeah,
That's
so,
cool.
I
but
gotta check that out.
I know.
but Sissy
That's
Spacek
cool.
was nominated for Best Actress, Piper Laurie for
Hmm.
Best
Yeah.
Supporting Actress, which was unusual
Yeah, for
for
the
Yeah,
any
70s, a horror movie to get
type of horror movie.
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I think I
See, I
shared this before, but one of my favorite Piper Laurie moments is that she has passed away since, but did conventions. And then one time I was having lunch and she was having lunch, I know, with somebody and Nancy Allen and a couple of others, and like a table away from me. So I wasn't facing her, but she'd be laughing and she'd have that cackle laugh.
The
yeah,
Just,
cackle.
it was so, yeah, I was just like, oh my God, Carrie White's mother is
Oh,
cackling
yeah. Yeah, you talked
at the
about
table
that.
at the
Oh,
table
that's
next to me.
hilarious.
Yeah. So
that's too
That's
funny.
funny.
but yeah, so we won't go into the remakes because we're just gonna do one thing at a time. When was the first time you guys saw Carrie, or what do you
Um,
remember? Yeah.
Man, I mean, for me, it was probably early 80s. So I was probably about 12, and I mean, it's a, creep you out kind of movie, you know what I mean, when you watched it. But now that you mentioned this, I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch the original again. It's been such a long time since I've seen it. But yeah, I was thinking I was 12 years old. It was, 80, yeah, geez, I don't know, 80, 84, you know? I mean, I was freaking myself out with Dreamscape and Carrie, you know? It's just like,
That'll do it.
yeah, yeah. It's like how
Wh-
how did you
Which
not sleep in 1984? Well,
I don't
just
know. Yeah, but Carrie does freak people out. I have a friend that Carrie still freaks him out. He's obviously a 50-plus-year-old adult, and he can't even think of. And I was like, well, she's not a Michael Myers. You know what I mean? I don't know. I was like, what is it about? It's just the whole thing that
Yeah.
somehow disturbs him. But
It is
Yep.
disturbing. I mean, her mother is like just pure evil, and
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
all these outside forces, and it's like she's just trying to get through her life, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
doesn't have like an evil bone in her body, and she just
yeah.
pushed too far, and it's like,
Yeah.
all right, you wanted the beast. Here you go.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think too, you take, that perspective, like when you're, at least for me at that young age, I mean, you take that into perspective in your own life too, and it's like, what if kind of thing, you just
Yeah.
start to dig in and go way down, and you're like, okay, this is why I can't close my eyes anymore,
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah, it's really cool though. That's I see, I have to go rewatch that now. I absolutely have to.
I
I mean,
do
that's
too.
how I'll do that tonight. Yeah.
It's
I
been a
watch
long
it, I
time.
say probably pretty often. And it's one of those once it start, I can't, you just get enveloped into it. And then
Yeah.
it's kind of like, I know sometimes we talk about Titanic where, like you're like, oh, you're invested in the story or whatever. And like, oh yeah, this is gonna go badly. And
Yeah.
I think you
Yeah.
still, you know what's happening, but you also kind of the sense of dread as it kind of leads up to prom.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty tight movie because I remember, especially like I've had many chances to go see it on the big screen, and you're like, oh, we everything moves pretty quickly, and you're almost at prom before you know it, and so
Yeah.
it's not
It does. Yeah. I remember that.
elongated. Yeah,
The
Well, I mean,
pacing's good.